Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Prietology Season 3 of 2022, and today is episode 4. Today, plant anatomy, as I mentioned last time. We're talking about these, especially these flowers, is obviously the name of our episode, Flower Power. So yeah, we got a lot of announcements at the end, something new coming soon. A little sneak peek here, I'll talk about it a little later. So yeah, let's just get into it. Let's review the key terms. Alright, let's review our key terms. We got 9 of them today. It's a pretty good amount. We have plant cell, chlorophyll, leaf, stem, root, flower, pollen, seed, and fruit. It's a good amount, so yeah, let's just get started. Alright, so let's get started. First term, plant cell. Basically going to be the basis of our discussion today about flower power, basically plant anatomy. Plant cells are basically like the cells for plants, if you didn't already know that. But plant cells are basically the things, they're box-shaped cells, so they're about of like an oblong shape like this. They're not entirely super boxy, they're not perfectly boxes, but they're box-shaped cells. The organelles are inside those cells. They're cells that have their box shape made by a cell wall instead of a gooey membrane like animal cells have. They have a tough cell wall made of cellulose. I think that's what it's made of, that make up plants. These are usually crammed with a water-storing organelle called a vacuole, which is a big blue blob inside of it. And they usually only have one vacuole, one large central vacuole in the middle to store water. The chloroplasts are an organelle inside plant cells, and they convert the sunlight through photosynthesis to energy and glucose, energy in the form of ATP. Fun fact about plant cells, their average size is about 10 to 100, let's see if I can say this right. 10 to 100 times 10 to the minus 6 meters. So that's like 10 millionths, I think. 10 millionths of a meter. That is incredibly small. Alright, term number 2, chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is basically the juice, the thing that makes photosynthesis happen. It's a green chemical inside chloroplasts, which I said was an organelle inside plants that captures sunlight for photosynthesis. The photosynthesis basically is a process that plants use to take CO2, water, and sunlight. So if you want to think of your chemical equation, here, I'm going to show it here. So you have CO2, water, and sunlight. You combine all those together and you make glucose, energy, and oxygen, energy in the form of ATP. The chlorophyll basically takes in the sunlight. It absorbs all wavelengths. We learned about wavelengths back in season 2. You can check it out over here. It absorbs all wavelengths except the color green. I know that kind of sounds confusing at first, but it makes sense. So if you have this green plant like I have right here, it would make sense for it not to absorb green because the green is being reflected back into your eyes. So basically that is why plants are green. They absorb all other wavelengths of light except green. So fun fact, the types of chlorophyll, 6. There are 6 types of chlorophyll. There's beta carotenes inside it, chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B. All of them absorb different colors of light, but like I said, except green. Alright, let's move on to 3. The third key term. Alright, so we are at term number 3, leaf. This may seem like a basic term, but basically these next 3 ones are going to be about plant anatomy, so the parts of the plants. Then the final 4 ones are the big ones, the ones about flowers, which are like the complex part of the plant. So we're going to use this leaves as an example. They're flat. They're parts on plants that collect sunlight, so they're flat, so they can just basically like span out as much as possible and collect as much sunlight as they can. They have an incredibly light internal skeleton. So if you ever have a leaf, if you flip it around, there's like little branches coming off of it. That is like its internal structure, because otherwise it would just be like a droopy piece of carbon. So it would just be droopy like that. And then another thing, it absorbs also CO2 through little tiny pores, like little very small holes that takes in CO2. So the chloroplasts can process them for photosynthesis and make energy and oxygen. Fun fact, the average leaves per tree for like an oak tree, like a fully grown oak tree, 200,000 leaves. Wow, that's a massive amount. Yeah, considering how old some of those trees can get, I'm not really that surprised. Alright, we are at term number 4. We're already almost halfway... No. We are almost halfway through it. Alright, let us keep moving. Stem. Another part of the plant. You know the stem? It's... Plant here is this part right here that branches off. And basically its main goal transport water throughout the entire plant. So it's kind of like the circulatory system, like the part of the body that transports nutrients around the body. You can learn more up here. That was actually last time's episode, right? Yeah, that was actually last episode. Yeah. So basically it transports water in the form of sap. So that's why when trees start to drip this maple syrupy type, which they use maple syrup to make it sap, basically water transported around the tree or plant. Basically they're made of cellulose, which is the things that the cell walls of the plant cells are made of to make them harder. So that's why when you try to punch into like a root of like a tree or something like that, it's hard. It also, the cellulose makes plants stringy as well. So if you like split a stem in half, it like comes out in fibers. That's kind of like the tube that transport it up to the main all over the plant. Fun fact, the longest stem that any plant has is a redwood. I think the California redwoods, 367 feet. Not in the roots, that'd be really long, but in the height stem itself, or 112 meters for all those metric people out there. Alright, this is our last of our plant anatomy terms. This is term number 5, root. Basically how I like to think of the root is kind of like the barrier. So basically it's the barrier between the dirt, like say this green block here that I have right here is the dirt. Basically the roots are the ones that go in here and basically determine what goes in and what doesn't go into the cell. So basically it's kind of like what goes into the plant. Sorry. So what goes into the plant is determined by it. So its main job is to suck up water, which get transported by the stem as sap throughout the plant and for photosynthesis. Sucks up water into the stem. Some plants, like potatoes and carrots, the roots store starch and sugars, so that's why potatoes have a high content of starch, and then which can be used to make vodka. French fries are good as well. So yeah, that's basically kind of what the root does. It stores stuff in some plants. Fun fact: the deepest roots that any other plant has in the world, 197 feet or 60 meters here in Arizona, my home state right now. I am in Arizona right now. So yeah, good to know that we have the longest roots in the world. Alright, so now we are getting into the flower power part of our episode with our 6th term. We're 2/3 through it. We got flower, not as in the powder. We're talking about these. These are flowers, if you didn't know them. Pretty cool things are the things that flamenco dancers hold in their mouth when they dance like this. Yeah. They're the tops of plants, so we have our plant here, we have the leaves, the root, the stem. They're the tops of plants. Their main goal, spread pollen everywhere and basically populate themselves all over the planet. They're made of 4 main components. We'll throw a picture up here. 4 main components: the petals, the stamen, the ovary, and the stigma. Stigma, basically, its main goal is to collect the pollen from other flowers. The ovary, which is in the middle of the flowers, is to make fruits and seeds if the pollen is inside, so it can start producing like its seeds to populate also. The stamens inside the flower also collect pollen, and the petals, as we know, attract pollinators like bees and other insects that could bring pollen into it so we can create fruits and seeds. Anything else we need to mention about these? No, I don't think so. Fun fact, I'll have to say this right. There's a flower called Rafflesia, I don't know. Rafflesia, you may think like, oh, it smells like daffodils and dandelions and wonderful bundles of joy. No, it smells like rotting flesh. Wow, that must smell horrible. I can't even start to imagine the smell. I haven't smelled rotting flesh before, but I can imagine it smells horrible. Alright, so we have our 7th term. We are almost done. We have pollen, as I mentioned in the last term of flowers. It fertilizes in the flower's ovule, which is in the flower's ovary. So basically that's what makes the fruits and seeds, the pollen. This is made in the stamen of the flower and released in the stigma. So basically they kind of work together. One makes, the other one releases into the world, going into other flowers and other pollinators. The insects are the ones that collect the pollen for food and to fertilize other flowers so they can make seeds and fruits. This is going to actually be a really interesting fun fact, I think. It's one of my favorites. The max distance traveled by a single pollen... Oh goodness me, I almost tripped onto the word. By a single pollen molecule? Pieces? I don't know. The max distance traveled 3,000 miles! That's massive. That's almost across, I think, the entire country. I think. The entire country of the U.S., I think. Or 4,800 kilometers, which is a massively big distance. Alright, it is time for the penultimate... It is time for the penultimate term, or the second to last term of this lesson, the seed. The seed, like I said, like we've kept mentioning, is made in the ovary of the flower. So the ovary is like the central hub of the flowers. It basically is the thing that runs all the entire operation. The pollen goes to it, it fertilizes it, and it makes seeds and fruit. So yeah, seeds are made there. They can survive in the most harsh conditions, from freezing cold to nuclear fire. Actually a pretty cool thing. There, I think, is a vault in Finland, I think, and it's just full of seeds. Like, there's different types of seeds for different plants. Those for, like, basically the main point of that vault is in case there's, like, a nuclear fallout, fire, and disaster in the world. Like, it obliterates everyone, we're, like, the last people standing. Basically, they could just rebirth it with different trees, and it has a lot of security because they can survive in harsh conditions. They can get eaten by animals, and they can be released into the wild by you-know-what. And they can be put into the ground, and thus new plants. So basically, it's another form of transportation besides pollen. Fun fact, the number of seeds per plant that are usually made, 10, which you would think, oh, that's not much, to 100,000. That's a lot. Alright, let's move on to the final term. Here we go, final term, term number 9. We've been talking about the ovary for a while, so why not? Let's talk about it even more. We got fruit. Fruit can be also made in the ovary from seeds. So the seed turns into the fruit. So a plant like, oh, let me get a different one. A plant like this that has weird looking flowers that are butterflies but are not butterflies for this purpose. These flowers can basically make seeds, which basically would turn into fruit. So basically a fruit is also another form of flower diffusion. They can diffuse seeds from all around the world with animals eating them and releasing them in the wild through dirt and all that stuff. So yeah, there's another way of diffusion for seeds, so they can be transported. As we know, fruit, all different flavors. They can be sweet, sour, savory, spicy. Is there spicy fruit? Probably not. But then again, some fruit has some defense mechanisms, like they can be poisonous to fend off other predators, to fend off like people's like, hey, don't attack me, I'm a plant. Oh yeah, you're trying to attack me, I'm gonna have poisonous fruit at you. Yeah, basically that's what it does. Alright, fun fact, the heaviest fruit, it's pretty familiar, it's not some weird name, it's a pumpkin. Yes, a pumpkin is a fruit. If you did not know that, get it right. It can weigh up to 995 pounds or 450 kilos, which is a lot of weight. Let's see if I can do that right this week. That was crisp. Alright, on to announcements. We got a lot of them today. God dang it. The laptop died out of battery. So I'm gonna have to use my phone to find the presentation where I have the announcements listed, so just hang tight. Yes, okay. So announcements coming soon. I showed you this. It's probably coming in the spring or about March of 2021 it's planned. I'll tell you more details about when we get there. Yesterday, if you were watching my channel, you would notice I published a short about me setting up this entire chaotic lesson that I do every other week. So yeah, shorts are usually going to be about announcements from now on, so like announcements, behind the scenes looks, or just really anytime I really want to make a short. Yeah, alright. The next video, next week on February, on the 5th, on February 5th is the next video. We're going to start a new video game series. I've been talking about it for a while, F1, the Formula 1 official video game. We're going to go racing, so that should be interesting. Next episode is the final episode of Season 3. Wow, we're already through 3 seasons of this thing. We only started this thing last year. I started this thing because the pandemic started, so you could technically call this thing about 2 years old. Yeah. Season 3, Episode 5 will be about... oh gosh. Genetics. We're doing genetics for the final episode of Season 3. And yeah, that's kind of it. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in 2 weeks for the brand new premiere of the Formula 1 video game. See ya. And this time I actually found the remote.